Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show special live edition because we have a trade. Keith, I'm excited.
I'm excited too. Play the drop. Let's go. We got to
Let's
get
do it. Let's do it.
We have an early trade to announce.
And it is indeed an early trade, right?
Yeah,
We're
it is.
weeks away from the trade deadline. Pascal Siakam to the Indiana Pacers. Keith, let me tell you this. People in the chat are saying, how did you guys get on so fast? This never happens. Trades go down at the worst possible moment. This is, I think, the first time ever that we've had a trade go down literally to the minute when we plan to record our show anyway. Thank you, NBA, for once taking us into consideration.
Yeah, we appreciate it. It's not 2:30 in the morning. I did not just get in the car to go do school pickup. You're not on a grocery store run. We
Yep.
were sitting down to record, and Trevor's not exaggerating. We were literally like, "All right, I'll send the link in a minute, and we'll start recording." And then we get the tweet from Woj that the trade is finalized and done. So let's get into it, right? Let's
Yeah.
let's break it all down because I think details are still going to leak out a little bit here because this is a 3-team trade. But what's going to happen is Pascal Siakam, that's the big one. He's going to the Indiana Pacers. Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora to the Toronto Raptors. And then they are also getting 3 first-round picks. So the first-round picks that are going are a 2024 Pacers first, a 2026 Pacers first. And then the Pacers also have a 2024 first. It's a little complicated. It'll be
Okay.
the worst of the Thunder, Clippers, Rockets, and Jazz. So probably the
Well,
Thunder or
the
Clippers
Thunder
pick. It's going to
Clippers,
be
yeah.
a pick in the mid to late 20s, very likely. Is the other pick that the Raptors will get. They're also getting Kyra Lewis from the Pelicans, which presumably will get the Pelicans out of the luxury tax. That was one of their major goals for this trade deadline season. They're going to get a second rounder from the Pelicans. So here we go. That is the big pieces. We also got to find out what's going to New Orleans. They have to get something in this trade. Is there going to be another player or two involved that are smaller type salaries? But here we go. We got all kinds of stuff happening with this, which is absolutely incredible stuff with this massive trade going down really 3 weeks ahead of the trade deadline.
Yeah, that's really incredible that we're getting such a big deal so far ahead of the trade deadline. When people hear 3 first-round picks, that's when people go, "Ooh, is that a lot?" I think that's where we need to caution. Not all picks are created equal, and I think you detailed in what you were saying there, Keith, that these are. It's not like we're talking about lottery picks here, but still 3 first-round picks. That's a pretty good haul, I think, for Toronto to get back. In addition to Bruce Brown, now what's the deal with his non-guaranteed for the second year on Bruce Brown's contract?
Team option for
Team
the
option.
second year, so it amounts to the same thing. The Toronto Raptors, so that's what I want them. You're going to see, guys. I'll be looking away a lot because I'm going to be working on stuff here on the side. But I've got them now, Toronto, able to, within reason, once we add those first rounders to the mix for them, they'll be able to get to about 30 million or so in cap space. Which is big, and that's keeping Emmanuel quickly in the fold, and then obviously all the rest of their players. So let's see. Let me see if I get this to the right number here, because I can tell you very quickly. About $31.5 million in cap space this coming summer for the Raptors if they kind of wipe everything else off the books. So really have cleaned up their cap situation considerably with this trade without taking any money on the books beyond this year.
Which is impressive stuff. Now, Keith, the other side of this, the Indiana Pacers, if they're going to give up what they gave up here, a guy that they were thrilled to get in Bruce Brown, the draft capital that we're talking about here, they have to have some kind of confidence that they're going to be able to keep Pascal Siakam in free agency this summer. At least
Correct.
I would assume. Otherwise, this is a very risky move for them if they really have no idea what he's going to do this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. I think what we're going to see in this situation with Indiana and Siakam both is let's see what it looks like. Let's see what number we feel pretty good about locking into. But yeah, you're not making this trade unless you feel like Siakam's there now long term. That was it. Pacers don't have a perfect roster, so I don't want anybody thinking that's where I'm going with this comment.
No.
But power forward was like the only real hole that they had. They've got guards, they've got bigs, they've got some wings. Now you're going to have Siakam in there. So there it is from Woj. I just saw that come across too. So yeah, it sounds like he'll work out a new contract. Now, some people may say, why won't he extend? Extension's not going to be enough for him in terms of years and dollars. When a player is traded, there is a thing that exists called an extend-in trade. But in the world of an extend-in trade, you can only get a 5% raise, and you can only add 2 years onto your contract. That's not enough, obviously, for Siakam. The other piece of that is then that comes with a 6-month restriction on extending, so he can't extend for 6 months. It basically works the same both ways. If you go over it, you get a trade restriction of 6 months. Otherwise, you have to wait to extend. 6 months clearly takes us past the start of free agency. But the Pacers will have his full bird rights, so they will be able to offer him basically all the way up to the max, including all the way up to a 5-year max, if that's where they want to go. It's not going to get there. I would be shocked. But $35 million range, $40 million range, that could be in play on a slightly shorter deal. They did not, somebody just asked, they did not get Jarris Walker. Did not happen.
And that was something that was big for the Pacers. Were determined to not give up Jarris Walker as well as Benedict Mathurin. Those were two guys they wanted to keep out of the deal, which is part of the reason why you're seeing the 3 first-round picks that are going over to Toronto. Now, I think that this may be it. Maybe this is it for Indiana. But it doesn't necessarily have to be. They still have that big Buddy Hield contract out there, and he's been rumored to be in play. Do you think Indiana is done? I kind of have a feeling they may have another move up their sleeve.
Yeah, they absolutely could, because they've still got Buddy Hield. You've got a whole bunch of other tradable contracts kind of in the mix there that are those mid-range types of deals. So you used your big pseudo expiring because of the team option with Bruce Brown, but you've got Buddy Hield, you have TJ McConnell. Let's say something comes along and they're like, boy, we are really couldn't believe we could get this guy. You could trade Jarris Walker at $6 million. You have Obi Toppin at $6.8 million. That's even a deal where it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to go. What also aided the Pacers in this trade, because I saw last night, in credit where credit is due, Shams had the initial, I think, framework of this, of Bruce Brown headed. I think what I saw a lot going around social media last night was, what is the kind of deal of we got to add up all the way to the salary? It's not exactly there, because the Pacers had $8 million in cap space too. So that makes it a little easier. They didn't have to get all the way to Siakam's trade. So yeah, I knew it was their own 2026 first, because that's the only first rounder they had in 2026, but good piece. So yeah, this is exactly what we thought. It's their own picks in 24 and 26. And then that pick I laid out, that's kind of confusing, but will be a pick in the mid to late 20s. So reality, Siakam comes in, Halliburton gets healthy. Pacers are probably sending 2 picks in the 20s this year, and then one other pick where I feel like they should
ideally in the 20s.
Good.
Yeah.
This is not, it's not a bad return for a guy Toronto is probably losing anyway.
Yeah.
But for Indiana, this is not like, oh my God, they gave everything that they had to give to get there. So that's good. And you know what? Good for the Pacers for going for it, for saying, we're pretty good. We feel like we have a chance. Let's go. I think that's great.
Where do you think this puts the Pacers in the Eastern Conference? As Josh said, King Theoden voice at the Helm's Deep, so it begins. Yeah.
I love it.
What does this do? Because obviously, look, I think it's a solid move for the Raptors. You get the draft capital. You move Siakam. You don't lose Siakam for nothing. Essentially, you get something for him. When you really dig into these, on the surface, you go, whoa, 3 first-round picks. When you really dig into it, we're probably talking about 3 late firsts, 2 of them in what's seen, and who knows how it'll end up, but what's seen as kind of a weak draft this year. So those things have to be factored in. But where does this put the Pacers in the hierarchy of the Eastern Conference? Is this enough when you add Siakam to Miles Turner, to of course Tyrese Halliburton. You've got Buddy Hield, potentially a trade piece as well. Then you've got your young guys. You've got your Benedict Mathurin as a guy that can go out there and fill it up. They've got some pieces. Where does this put them in relation to the rest of the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think they're still a tier below Boston, Milwaukee, and Philadelphia, but they're probably at the top of that next group. And then all that takes is one stumble, and they will probably push through there to get past those guys. So I think that's all it takes. We've seen in the playoffs, unfortunately, the last couple of years, if somebody rolls an ankle at the wrong time, they can lose a playoff series. And the Pacers are the kind of team that's definitely good enough to jump in. What's nice now is they have another defender. I have felt like for a while, even though they play at this super high pace and they get up and down the floor and all that stuff, they needed one more on-ball creator, especially somebody who could create in the half court. And that's what you get with Siakam. And he's not a great shooter. He's not somebody you're building your game plan around taking away his 3-point shot, but he's good enough that you step out to him. He helps Miles Turner inside. I think now, because Siakam's pretty good on the boards, you could see Turner maybe gets to roam a little bit more and do some of the shot blocking stuff. Siakam's strong enough to defend most fives. You're not really putting them on like Embiid or Jokic or those guys, but a lot of other fives you can put them on. And now they have somebody who they can, in theory, throw at Giannis. He's not going to stop Giannis. Nobody does, but at least maybe he could kind of slow him down a little bit. So yeah, I think this is a great trade for Indiana as far as all those respects go.
I've got obviously the super chat comment says horrible trade. The Raptors could have gotten better players and draft capital back. And Pacers, you don't give up 3 firsts for a guy on his last year. I guess you can make the argument, look, he's a guy that you could have signed maybe over the summer without having to give up stuff. But I think there's some value to getting him now. If you make a push into the playoffs, what is that? Like, let's say you're Indiana and you make it to the second round and you're a 7-game out in the second round. What does that do for your prospects over the summer out on the market if that is now the perception of your team? I think that's got some value too to adding Siakam. And who knows, maybe things break their way and they wind up in the Eastern Conference Finals or something like that. What that can mean for the moves that are available to them this summer also has value. I know we tend to look at, well, you could have kept your assets and maybe signed him or something like that. But there is some, if you really think this is the piece that's going to help you make a real push, there's some value to changing that perception of your club before you hit the big free agent market this summer.
Big time. That is perfect comment. The Pacers haven't made the playoffs in the last 3 seasons. They haven't made it past the first round since 2013-14. And that's when they had like those Roy Hibbert, David West, Paul George, Danny Granger teams that were battling against LeBron and the Heat in the East Finals those years. So they missed the playoffs 1 year after that East Finals trip. And then from 16 through 20, they're in the playoffs and out in the first round every year, and then haven't made it the last 3 years. This is important for them to say, we can be a playoff team. And I think you're at the point in the career arc where we got to get Tyrese Halliburton in playoff games. We got to see what it looks like. It's time to start playing really important, meaningful games from now through the remainder of the regular season and into the postseason. So I'm okay with this. And in the Pacers, as Woj is already reporting, they're not giving up 3 firsts for a guy who's walking out the door. They know he's probably sticking around, so they feel pretty good about that part of it. So this is a huge get for them. It's not a free agent picking a team, but it's as close as you're going to get, because this is Siakam saying, I'm okay to go there and I'm good to stay there long term. Otherwise, they don't make the deal, or at least they don't make this version of the deal. Maybe 2 weeks from now, they make a different version where they send far less, but they're comfortable sending 3 firsts, even though we already detailed probably not great ones. A good player in Bruce Brown, who did pick them in free agency, or maybe picked the Pacers money in free agency if we're being realistic, to go. So we're in a fun spot here with this.
So let me just note this real quick. We've got 2,300 people in here right now. If you're not a subscriber to the channel yet, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well for us. We are pushing towards 30,000 subscribers on the Front Office YouTube channel. So again, if you are in this show right now, you're watching us and you are not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. Help us hit that goal. All right.
Hit
We
the
do
like
have
button too, so that'll get this
Yes.
video out after the fact to even more people. Plus, it'll push it up on the live standing. So yeah, we're thankful for everybody in here. Just do us a solid and help push our numbers up even more, and you won't regret it, because we're going to be coming to you with even more stuff like this every day, Monday through Friday, and if necessary on the weekends if big deals happen between now and the trade deadline.
We're going to keep you up to date with everything that you need to know heading into that trade deadline. Let's get into this. So there's a lot of other trade news that we need to get into for today. A lot of other talks and discussions going on around the league. Does Toronto? I've got people saying, could Toronto flip Bruce Brown now? Kevin said, would you offer Gabe, JHS, Prince, and a first round pick to Brown to Toronto if you're the Lakers? I mean, I think the first thing before even getting into that trade is, could Toronto have more to do here, even though now they've traded OG Anunoby, they've traded Pascal Siakam, the big moves that they weren't willing to make a year ago, now here they are making them. Are they done?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you're open to trading Bruce Brown if you can. You're open to trading Gary Trent Jr. if you can. I think you're pretty much saying Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, we're not doing business on those guys. Barrett, obviously, you could maybe get someone to bite on that, but I think you're those are kind of our three guys moving forward. And then anybody else, yeah, let's have a conversation. If you're interested, Dennis Schroeder, if a team is interested, he doesn't really have a real place necessarily. He's been put back into that 6-man role there. So those are the guys. I think if somebody really wanted to come in and throw them a bunch for Jakob Poeltl, you make a move like that and you say, yeah, sure, let's go. Let's make the trade. But Barnes, Quickly, and to a lesser degree, Barrett. The one thing to keep in mind, they won't be able to aggregate Bruce Brown with somebody. There's a lot of bees going on in Toronto now. Brown, Barrett, Barnes. So they won't be able to put him together with somebody else and go get somebody. But trading him by himself, yeah, that could happen. I mean, that's part of the reason why you do a trade like this early if you're Toronto, because now you've got 3 weeks where you could turn around and trade him if you want to.
Yeah, and that's something maybe that they could wind up doing. Again, kind of an interesting contract too for Bruce Brown. By the way, all those bees in Toronto, somewhere LeVar Ball is scheming right now. You got the triple B's right there.
Could be. I've seen people asking. There was I'd have to look. I saw something about Lonzo Ball maybe being moved in a trade. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to look something up. I don't know. So let's address this right now because it is coming across the chat. It's going to take us down for a minute here. But it's being reported by Eurohoops.net. We have not seen it through any of the normal NBA reporting channels that Dejan Milijevic, who is the Warriors assistant that was struck ill, has passed away. So I can only hope that report is wrong and is erroneous, because that's just terrible news to hear that there had been reporting that he had a heart attack at a team dinner last night. The Warriors Jazz game for this evening has been postponed, will not be happening. But if that's true, just horrible news, and all the best to his family and his loved ones and everybody in his life, because that's just terrible. 46 years old, just gone way too soon if that report is accurate.
That's terrible. Yeah, if that's accurate, of course. We saw the news, of course, when the news came out that the game was being rescheduled. Yeah, that's obviously not a good sign. But I hadn't seen that report that had happened. So
we're seeing
again,
now,
hopefully that's incorrect.
European clubs are tweeting similar type things. So yeah, just awful news here. Brings us down on an exciting show because we're talking about the trade and all that stuff. But I did see people asking in the chat, so I went and looked it up, and that is one of the things that is unfortunately coming around the news wire right now. So that's just brutal news. But
that's absolutely terrible. Yes, yeah.
So, all right, let's we pick ourselves back up and get into this. Yeah, he was Jokic's coach when
Mhm.
Jokic was a young guy. A lot of guys. He's been involved with a lot of players. He was a coach in Serbia and in Montenegro. Highly thought of. He was a coach on the Serbian national team for a few years as well. So he's somebody that people really really love. So yeah, the yeah, just brutal. So yeah.
Keith, if we want to get back into some trade
Sure.
stuff, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
not
Somebody
a
ask a question and get us.
well.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm gonna
Okay.
do.
Let's
I've
go.
got Jake Fisher had a great piece out today
Yeah.
with a bunch of trade news in it, and so I wanted to work through some of that. One of
Sure.
those first bullet points saying that Dallas had been one of the teams engaged in acquiring Siakam. Obviously, that's not happening. But they are also linked to other versatile forwards, including Andrew Wiggins, PJ Washington, and Dorian Finney-Smith. So that's now something to keep an eye on. Because there's other teams. It wasn't just the Pacers that were in on Siakam. There were other teams, the Mavs being one of them. So now we're going to see some teams start to pivot. Sacramento is another team to keep an eye on. Who do they turn their attention to? And this is, we talked about this yesterday, that the Nets really need a deal. Does Dorian Finney-Smith become one of the bigger names or a name that's more out there on the market now that the Siakam domino has fallen? That's what's to keep an eye on is next. How do teams respond here to what's happened?
Yeah, I mean that's how it goes at this time of year. If multiple teams are in on a guy to various levels, right? Some of them may be really in, some may not be, but it is a spot where if you thought you had a chance at a guy and he goes, you move on to plan B or plan C or plan D. And this is part of what front offices do from everybody kind of is like, what do they do from the start of the season to like the beginning of trade season? You sit down and you start mapping out game plans for
Mm-hmm.
who could we trade for, who might become available, and all those kind of things. And you just kind of keep going through it. And then you why you want to be is you want to be caught off guard if all of a sudden some team that said no back in mid-December, now in mid-January or early February is like, hey, we're ready to move the guy. We're not who we think we are. Then you jump all over it. So that's where I think we can see Dallas pivot. The Jeremy Grant idea is interesting. I think it would really help them. The problem for the Mavs, just if we use them, because this is who this piece of reporting was about,
Mm-hmm.
they're somewhat limited in what they can trade because they don't have a ton of tradable salary, and they're in a spot where they don't have a lot of tradable picks either to kind of sweeten the pot. It's not like they're sitting on a really good young player or expiring salary that would go up. Most of their salary has a year or two or more left beyond this season. And then they also have traded first round picks and other deals. So they're a little bit tied up because of that. So that's why I don't know that I see them necessarily making a big trade right now.
Yeah, I'd agree there, but just interesting that they're after that they're after some of that wing depth. Another note here is that the Blazers are not expected to seriously entertain offers for Jeremy Grant. That's surprising to me. Why, if you're the Blazers and you're in this position, especially given Grant, it's not like he's 37 or something like that, but he's getting a little bit older. Is this posturing? To me, this doesn't make much. This makes about as much sense as Detroit being a buyer on the market right now to me, Keith. Why would Portland not entertain offers for Jeremy Grant?
I think Portland's hope is they can spin this thing pretty quickly, and they re-signed Jeremy Grant by all indications. I know we all took the approach of, man, they re-signed Jeremy Grant to that massive contract, and then Dame was like, see you later. Like, do they regret it? Remember, there were even people like, do you think they'll try to get out of it and say, hey, sorry, man? And Portland said, no, we signed Jeremy Grant because we like Jeremy Grant. That's why we signed him. So I think there's some truth to that, obviously. So I think having Jeremy Grant and having these guys. Sorry, I read details and I thought it said Dallas. And I got all excited.
Details on the
So
Sean's trying to put out a piece with
while
details.
we're live? I would have gone bonkers for this.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
We would have been here the rest of the day. So anyway, I think in Portland's case, Jeremy Grant can still be a part of what they're trying to build there. And I think they don't have a lot else at that position, unlike Malcolm Brogdon, who you noted Jake says is available. And I think everybody kind of knows that. They've got 1 million guards. So they don't really need a Malcolm Brogdon. That was just how you got the Drew Holiday trade done. So I think that one makes a lot of sense. Where Grant, I think it's, hey, let's see what it is. Now, if somebody comes and gets silly with an offer, I think then it's probably okay. Let's have a conversation and let's rethink that stance. But for right now, I think you probably just hold pat and let it move forward. That's probably more of a summertime trade anyway, just
Sure.
with how big the contract is.
The contract is maybe prohibitively big, but Jeremy Grant could be. I mean, you could see some of the teams that were interested in Siakam just pivoting to Jeremy Grant and going there. Again, not the same contract, obviously, in a different situation. So perhaps there's less interest there, but just it's interesting seeing that Grant is a guy that Portland's not expected to seriously entertain offers for. But again, it takes one phone call to change that. Golden State has held discussions on Siakam as well. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but they've also shown little indication that they're going to part with Moses Moody or Jonathan Kuminga. They're trying to find in-season improvements to right the ship that's still being run by Curry, Green, and Thompson. So if you're of the mindset that you're going to keep Curry, Draymond, and Thompson, which we don't know for sure if they're going to, and you're not indicating that you want to part with Moses Moody or Jonathan Kuminga, how are you getting a deal done if you're the Warriors?
Yeah, I will sorry, I want to break in on something else here just very quickly. So back to the Siakam trade. Bobby Marks is noting this, which makes a lot of sense. Kyra Lewis is going to be traded to the Pacers first. Then what will happen is, I mentioned, the Pacers have $8 million in cap space. That's how they're going to bring in Kyra Lewis. Then what the Pacers are going to do, which means the Pacers are going to have to waive somebody, or they had to trade somebody to the Pelicans. That could be, probably most likely what will happen is they'll waive James Johnson just to open the roster spot. But he'll go in there. Then what's going to happen is Kyra Lewis, because they acquire him with cap space, they'll be able to aggregate him. And that's the little extra salary in the trade to Toronto. So as far as 99% of the people are concerned, it still ends up with all the same guys in the same place. Who really cares? But it's just kind of a fun cap trade legal rule type thing of this is how these trades will be structured. So that's going to be kind of fun.
So he's actually got to get sent to the Pacers first. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting little wrinkle.
Because because it's cap space, they'll be able to do that.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. The Warriors, look, if they're not going to part with, I mean, maybe that could put Chris Paul's contract in play to a team that would probably wind up buying him out. If the Warriors are looking to make moves that don't include Curry, Green, Thompson, Moody, or Kuminga, obviously a team that has a lot of motivation to try to fix things. This could ultimately lead to a blow up. I don't know what kind of value they're going to get for Draymond or Clay or those guys out on the market right now. So that's maybe a factor too. They can't trade those guys away and get a package that says, you just kind of took what you could get.
Yeah.
They would have to it would have to be the right move for them to do that. So if they really don't want to trade Moses Moody or Jonathan Kuminga, I do wonder if that makes Chris Paul a name that we start hearing more and more as we get closer to February 8th.
I think there's two things at play here. We said this over the summertime when Chris Paul was traded from the Suns to the Wizards and ultimately to the Warriors. This was them getting off of Jordan Poole's long-term salary with the second apron restrictions looming, that are going to make it very hard to build out a team. So what they did was they turned that into Chris Paul's extremely tradable smaller contract, with also the idea of, hey, we can just get out of it if we need to after the season with it costing us nothing. Now I think we're in a position where, we could certainly see Chris Paul get moved and get traded. Challenge is he's out until very likely after the trade deadline. I think it's almost no chance he returns before then. So we'll see. I have two things. So I'm going to ask the chat. Our dog is snoring extremely loud.
I can't hear it.
Can hear it. Oh man, I was hoping you could, because it's kind of funny. She is like out cold, snoring very loud. The other thing, since several people have asked, my hat is not a John Morant hat. I can see why people would think that.
They think it says Ja.
Like a J. And it looks like it says Ja, but it's a Foundation Academy hat. It's where my daughter goes to school and plays soccer. So that's a very stylized F to look like a lion paw. But I can understand why people would think it was a John Morant. Yeah, unfortunately, we did cover, if people are joining in late, we did cover Dejan Milijevic passing away. That's really unfortunate. It seems to be very accurate now. Several European clubs and outlets have now reported it. So I would imagine it's only a matter of time before the NBA side here recognizes it.
Yeah, we know that's coming at this point. Brandon Butler asked, do you think the Jazz stand pat or have they become a buyer now that they're on a hot streak? And what is a good fit?
I'm jealous of Brandon's beard. I could never grow a beard like that in my life.
That is an impressive beard that he's got going there.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Jazz are interesting, right? It's a spot where I think maybe they could be buyers. I also think Danny Ainge could wake up tomorrow and say, I don't really care about chasing the play-in tournament. That is not where I want to be. Doesn't really matter to me. I'm gonna move some guys and move on. I do think Lauri Markkanen, outside of a extreme case of somebody bowls them over with here's every first round pick we could give you plus great young players deal, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think we've seen some reporting at Jake had it, Mark Steins had this. The Jazz are building around Markkanen. He's probably not going anywhere. But just about everybody else, minus the rookie scale guys, probably in play
George
to some extent, right? Yeah, I think, Keontae George, Walker Kessler,
sure,
Taylor Hendricks. Like, I think those guys are all sticking around. But I think everybody else, you could see Ainge say. Now, I was also there when Danny Ainge turned around and was like, let's maybe add a couple guys who can help because this Celtics team that we thought was going to be terrible, and I've already made 12 trades already this year, including guys who were coming in and like barely dropping a bag down before they get traded 2 days later. He went out and got Isaiah Thomas. That was the trade deadline from Woj, where we got that right at the buzzer, and that was one of the late trades. So I could see him saying, hey, we're kind of better than I thought. We've already got a ton of assets moving forward. Let's try to see what we can add to this team, because boy, they are playing well. They are playing some really good basketball right now.
They're playing the way they started the season last year. Where they're hitting all their jumpers and they're getting everything to fall, and they're doing work on the offensive glass. And so now they're a team where, okay, you keep an eye on like Jordan Clarkson, you keep an eye on Kelly Olynyk, on some of those types of guys. But I think this does buy them a little bit of leverage, actually, because they can make the argument, hey, if you want these guys, it's going to cost a little extra because we feel like we can make a push right now with them. So we're willing to move them, but we're not just giving guys away here. We're not saying, hey, our season is shot, we're in tank mode, and please take these guys and give us something for them. No, they can make the legitimate argument that, hey, look, we've got something going here, and you're going to have to convince us to move on from these guys.
And John Collins is playing pretty well. Again, all of a sudden, maybe he's finally over whatever that weird finger thing was, or he's figured out how to shoot despite that finger thing maybe never getting to be okay again. But he's shooting the ball pretty well again. He's up around 38% from three again, which is that's when John Collins really has a lot of value. They're playing him at the 5 right now too, almost exclusively at the 5. Kessler and Olynyk have come in as kind of their backup backcourt, where Kessler plays the 5, Olynyk plays the 4. So a lot of front court depth there in Utah, and a lot of different ways they structure lineups. Their guards are getting after Chris Dunn. I don't know how many people realize what a great story Chris Dunn has been this year, really going back to last year when he got called up from the G League. But he is turned into kind of what we all hoped he would be, which is one of the better defensive guards. And he plays pretty good on offense. He gets them up the floor, gets them in their stuff. And they've got a lot of other guys between Markkanen and Sexton and Fontecchio and Keontae George and Jordan Clarkson that can score. So he just kind of does his thing of playing defense, keeping the ball moving. And he's playing really, really well for them.
Yeah, and so that's put them in a good position. They've got guys that I think are going to be able to help them continue winning games. So they'll be a team to watch certainly at the trade deadline. But I don't think they're as firmly in the seller category as we would have expected them to be.
Like, by the way, guys, ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, maybe everybody but Markkanen. Sure. Yeah, why not? Like, yeah. Now all of a sudden it's the other way. I see a lot of people throwing Terry Rozier. There was some reporting, I think, in Jake Fisher's piece about Terry Rozier. I've heard, he could be somebody who could go. I think Charlotte is, if it's not LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, or Mark Williams, pick up the phone and call. because they're open to seeing
Yep.
what they can do with just about anybody. I think PJ Washington becomes a very interesting fallback for teams that were maybe interested in Siakam because he costs a lot less salary wise and should cost less to acquire. And not similar skill set as far as Siakam's a very good ball handler and playmaker, but just a guy who can play the 4 and the 5 and do some stuff. He's somebody
James
I would like
Johnson
to see
getting waived.
Oklahoma City maybe get in on. I think he could make a lot of sense for the
Yes.
Thunder at a very acquirable salary for them. I would love to
The
see them
Thunder,
go that way.
Thunder can just go, hey, how many picks do you want?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, you want 7 of them? Sure. I added it up. How many tradable second round picks do you think the Thunder have?
It's got to be something absurd, like 30 or something.
You're a little high. You
A
went a
little
little
high.
too absurd. It's
Is
22.
it 20?
21
Okay.
or 22. There's one that's a little nebulous, so it's a little not sure exactly the standing there. But yeah, isn't that wild?
That's crazy. That's crazy. Hey, anybody want 20 second round picks? Here you go. God, that's
Yeah,
more
right.
than
Yeah,
more
right.
than you can
It'd
even
be
use.
could you imagine? That'd be so amazing. The Thunder are acquiring player X for 20 second round pick, and then somebody has to list them all out.
That's the equivalent of like Michael Scott going all in when he sits down at the poker table.
Right? Yeah, on his
Just push
first
all those
hand.
chips in.
Yeah.
All right. This one said, quick one. What's the cap space impact and what monies are owed to players in these scenarios? Team A waives player A on the last year of his contract and said player retires versus Team A waives player A and Team B picks him up.
So if Team A waives player A and he just doesn't sign with anybody else, they eat the full value of whatever it was they were waiving him for, or they eat the cap hit. It's one or the other there with that, pending what kind of contract he was on. If Team B picks the player up, it depends on what the contract had written in it. If there was agreed to what the NBA calls set-off language, which is whatever you sign for, we take a percentage of that off your old deal. That can be in a thing. Here's the difference though. Let's just say a team waives a $10 million player and he signs somewhere else for 5, and there is $5 million. There's set off language. That doesn't mean $5 million immediately comes off the other team's books. It's an after the season accounting thing. So it would come off after the season is over. You get no credit right now. Now, where that is different, you waive a player and a player is claimed off waivers, you're absolved of any cap hit. That now transfers to the other team. That fully moves over to the other side.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's where sometimes you see a team waive a guy and you wonder, did they waive this guy kind of hoping that somebody's gonna pick him up? Because so that can be a thing. It's rare, but that can be a thing.
Shout out to Samuel Bailey checking in. We've been live for 40 minutes, and he says, "Did Pascal get traded?" Yes, he did.
He did.
That is why we're live. Yeah, just for anybody who hasn't seen, Pascal Siakam traded to the Indiana Pacers in a deal that involves also the New Orleans Pelicans, Siakam to the Pacers. The Raptors will get Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, Kyra Lewis. The Pelicans are going to get something. I don't think we've seen that yet. I may have missed it if somebody had it, but they'll get Eric Pincus termed it a nothing something years ago, and that's exactly perfect because you just got to get something for him. And then 3 first-round picks also going to the Raptors. It is the Pacers pick in 2024. I'm going to do this off memory, so I apologize, but it's the worst of the Thunder, Clippers, Rockets, Jazz pick in 2024, and then it is the Pacers 2026 pick.
Another note here from Jake Fisher. The Suns are exploring a Grayson Allen Nasser Little combo to see what that could bring back in. They only have a handful of second rounders that they could throw in to try to make a deal work with somebody, but those are the pieces that they're looking around on the trade market for. Not going to be easy to find stuff with that being your outgoing package, but still interesting to note that Phoenix is one of the more active teams right now trying to find pieces to help this team.
Yeah, without a doubt on that one. I think it's what's interesting for the Suns is I just literally posted like 25 minutes to maybe it was an hour. I don't know, 25, 30 minutes to an hour ahead of this big Siakam trade, my trade primer for Spot Track. And I had Nasir Little in there as the most tradable guy because all of the Suns non-minimum salaries belong to starters and Nasir Little. Every other player on the rosters are on minimum salaries. So it's 9 guys on minimums, and then they have that. Now, what's funny is Grayson Allen's become a really important player. They had that huge comeback last night against the Kings. He might have been the best player on the floor in that game. He played out of his mind well, both offensively and defensively. So that is just really, something, I would keep an eye on if I'm the Suns. I don't know that I'm, necessarily just throwing them in trades to get anything that's not a huge upgrade, but that's where Phoenix is. And I've seen a bunch of people saying too, well, Phoenix knows they could do a 2-for-1 because there'd be the prime buyout place. It's certainly possible, but you have to remember under the buyout rules now, it's got to be guys who make less than the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, because otherwise those guys cannot join an apron trade.
Yeah, and that's where things get complicated for teams like the Suns, team like the Celtics that are way above the Clippers, that are way above that second tier apron, and so that's something that can make things a little bit tough on them. And that was the whole plan of the new CBA, was to make it less palatable to spend your way to a top seeded team, and instead force teams to try to work within the bounds. And especially once we hit next summer, we're going to see teams have to restrict themselves even further once the more punitive elements of that actually come into play. But Phoenix is a team to keep an eye on, and I don't know that moving Grayson Allen really helps them, because he's been pretty good for them. I guess it depends on what you're getting back. But what else? It's Nasir Little in those second round picks, and maybe you can get something if you're Phoenix. But they are very locked in to this group that they've got right now. D-Rock asked, Jarris Walker for Dorian Finney-Smith. Who says no? I'm sure does the math work on that?
Yeah, the math doesn't work, but I also feel like that's too much from the Pacers side. Now they have Siakam, you don't need to make a move for a guy like Finney-Smith. It's not bad. It just isn't a thing. That's not. I wouldn't do that if I was the Pacers. I'd hold firm on that. I'd be looking to make a smaller trade if I was Indiana, unless it's going to be something with Hield, where you start getting Hield and Toppin together, and that's $25 million in matching salary, and let's go nuts. Let's go get another really good player. Maybe that's the direction this goes.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're saying. These teams may not be done dealing here. All right, we've got a few more things to get into. PJ Tucker, still a strong trade candidate with the Clippers. The Wizards mentioned as a landing spot. And then, of course, he would get bought out.
Yeah, that's the Wizards saying, please give us draft picks to take
PJ Tucker
from you.
We will absorb him.
Yeah.
Oh, could you imagine? Like, if the Wizards didn't buy him out, that would just be cruel to PJ Tucker.
Geez. Yeah, I wonder if PJ Tucker would be like, I'm out. Like,
yeah.
Probably not,
like, and I'm calling it a career.
Next year, too. So, yeah.
Suns and Bucks, two teams considered possible landing spots for Tucker if he becomes a free agent. And then San Antonio, we talked about this the other day, but Doug McDermott, Cedi Osman, potential available guys. And then Devontae Graham gets added to the list as well, just $2.8 million guaranteed for his salary for next season. So maybe that becomes an interesting trade chip there.
Yeah, those are guys I could see. They do the DeJounte Murray type move. I could see one of those guys in that trade, just as here's the salary balancer in this, because it might even turn into, hey, we're not going to give you quite as much for DeJounte Murray as maybe you want, but what if we take one of your contracts you don't really like, and we'll take it off your books, and then that's how, but we're going to send you one back that expires after the year. In the case of Graham, basically is expiring, and that's how we balance it off that way. That could be how that deal gets done, despite the fact that I love the idea of Atlanta calling and saying, I want my picks back, all of them, to San Antonio. I just don't know that that's how that's going to go down.
Yeah, absolutely. I would enjoy your pancakes. To the people in chat saying, how have you not talked about my team? Fill in the blank.
Probably did.
We've talked about a bunch of teams. We even talked about, somebody said, have you not talked about Miami? We did talk about Miami. We mentioned them with Terry Rozier as potentially a landing spot there. So there's a lot of teams out there that are looking to do a lot of different things right now on the trade market, which again is why you guys need to make sure you are subscribed. If you're not a subscriber yet, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications right here for the NBA Front Office Show. We're here breaking things down every single day, Monday through Friday, breaking down the latest NBA trade news, letting you know what's possible, what's not, trying to cut through what's real and what isn't, what's smoke and what could actually happen. Tomorrow.
Hey, let me go through a
Go ahead.
couple small housekeeping items with the trade, which is why we went live today. Indiana, in order for the trade structure to go down as Kyra Lewis gets traded to the Pacers first, they're going to have to waive somebody. My guess is it will likely be James Johnson to free up the roster spot.
I believe that is what's happening.
Yeah, then I would not be surprised if in a few days here after he clears waivers, if they re-sign James Johnson and bring him back, which good for James Johnson, because all that does is give him a little bit of extra, cash in his pocket because his contract's already guaranteed. The Raptors will also need to waive somebody in order to do their trade. My guess is it'll probably be Garrett Temple. He's on a minimum contract, and then we'll see what happens. They free up a roster spot. Maybe they could bring Garrett Temple back. These guys they're on teams right now because they're playing the Udonis Haslem type of role of respected locker room veteran that can help keep younger teams in line. There's always rooms for guys like that, but transactionally, those are the moves that make sense. So that would be my guess. We see a couple waivers go down. Still have not seen anything. I have not looked in depth yet. I will get into it after we're done recording on what New Orleans is getting in the trade. But my guess is this is going to be draft rights to somebody who will likely never come over to the NBA, or it'll be something along the lines of here's a top 55 protected second round pick that it will either never convey. And if it does convey, we're one of the best 5 teams in the league. We don't really care. So off we go. That's my guesses. As I said before, Eric Pincus of Bleacher Report, Sports Business Classroom, years ago coined that a nothing something. And it is the perfect way to describe it. Something has to go in a trade. So you call it a nothing something.
Exactly. All right. This question says Reeves, Vando, Prince for Bruce Brown and Pirtle. Well, that definitely can't happen because Jared Vanderbilt is not trade eligible this season. So
I'm like the Grinch. My heart just grew 5 sizes. you had that one down. I love it when when people are like, no, let me get on this right now. That can't happen. Yeah, Vanderbilt not trade eligible.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you wanted to, you could throw in a different contract there. But anyway, I don't see that as a deal that makes sense for, I guess either side would be going for that. All right. Always fun when stuff breaks. Always fun when it's a trade, and especially when that trade happens like as we are sitting down to record our show. Let's do this again tomorrow. I almost in my head, Keith, all day. Today has been Thursday. So in my head, I'm thinking we've got another live show tomorrow. No, that's coming up on Friday. Tomorrow we're going to record. Let's hope that we get the same luck tomorrow, that as we sit down to record, boom, another trade hits. We'll go live again.
Without a doubt. If you're new here and you haven't watched, every Friday we go live. We call them Front Office Fridays, and it is your show. This is your chance to ask questions and get into stuff. We'll always have a little bit of news, and we'll go get into that, to start off the show generally. But the rest of it is all of your questions. Just ask us, whatever you want to know about. This time of year, we tend to keep it basketball, but every once in a while, a question will slip in there that's about movies or TV that we've watched or something else. Sometimes there's questions about the business and how do we cover. Thank you to Jude Bailey, I think it is, in the chat saying so close to 30,000 subs. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, please. Get there for us. We're really trying to grow the channel and get there. I do want to address one thing too, very, very quickly. Somebody said in the comments on, I think it was yesterday's video, if you guys grow, you're just going to turn to a subscription model.
Oh yeah.
It's not anything we've talked about.
Never discussed it.
If we ever get there, we're still a long ways from that. I promise you, we will make it worth your money, or let us know and we'll make sure you get your money back. But for now, we're content with this thing growing as long as it is continuing to grow. So let some people know, subscribe, like the videos over on YouTube. If you're a podcast listener getting this after the fact, ratings and reviews always help. And then just tell a friend, we love doing the show Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, covering off on all the news and notes and all that stuff. And every Friday live show, Front Office Friday. Right. So everybody check in, if you can. I'm just seeing Woj just now tweeting about Warriors assistant coach Dejan
Oh man.
Milojevic has passed away. So just, really, really unfortunate news.
And here's
There,
Chris Haynes. Yeah.
the Warriors, I think, are probably confirming it now out to the local reporters. So had already been reported, by the European media. So we'll close with that. Best wishes to his loved ones in his life. Thoughts are with all of them with this, just, absolutely horrible news. So we wish all the best, but it's just gone way too early. 46 years old is far, far too young.
Yeah, absolutely. That's tragic stuff there. And that's
Absolutely.
and the NBA making the right call in rescheduling
100%.
the Warriors game.
Yep, without a doubt.
All right, everybody.
All right. Well,
come back here to the
pick up
channel tomorrow. We'll break down all the latest trade news. So
Whatever
make sure
we
you hit that
missed from the
subscribe button.
Siakam trade, we'll have the details then.
Yes.
Right. So we'll get into them at that point. We'll really close the loop on all of that and really, really get it into a place where we can all right, this is what New Orleans got. These are any outstanding trade details, trade exceptions, all that stuff. We'll have worked out by the time you tune in to tomorrow's show.
Yep, that's right. So a lot to look forward to tomorrow. Hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications as well. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.